Order in the court. The judge boomed, but tension within was already bubbling long before his gavel landed on wood. The courtroom was not only filled, it overflowed. Every seat was filled. Every wall leaned against, every corner occupied by a person willing to be present at history-making. Journalists held their notepads and microphones, television cameras rolled along, and blinding lights illuminated the room. Sister Wives fans stretched their necks to look harder, their whispers running back and forth to one another in hushed voices, as if children waiting for the last trick of a magician. Even grizzled neighbors who had once been friendly with the Browns dominated the back pews, whispering bitterly. At last, he can't hide this time. The aroma of stress, sweaty hands, stale coffee, frayed paper lingered in the air. It was the aroma of a tempest waiting to burst. And at its center was Kody Brown. He who had once been the loud, proud, blonde-haired king of a sprawling polygamous clan no longer resembled the sure-footed man folks had seen on television sets. Gone was his signature smile, the one that had beguiled millions. His lips were thin, pressed together, his jaw clenched. His normally styled hair fell in limp strands across his face, and his fidgeting hands revealed his agitation. He pulled at his tie, shifted, and scanned the throng like an anxious animal searching for an exit. There was no escape. Today, across from him were his estranged wives. Meri, Christine, Janelle, and Robyn. The women who had once shared his name, his dream, his struggles. Now they sat together, bound by something more unbreakable than matrimony. Betrayal. Meri sat nearest the judge, holding a thick file in shaking hands. Her face was white as a sheet, but her eyes blazed with determination. Years of suffering silently had made her tough. Today she was less a scorned wife, and more a warrior who had at last discovered her weapon. Christine bent in toward Janelle, whispering, her face vacillating between outrage and sorrow. She was not loud, but the bite in her eyes made her intentions plain. This was the day they had been waiting for. Janelle heard intently, nodded affirmatively. Her mouth pinched shut. She was always practical, always moderate, but today even she was battle-ready. And then Robyn, the wife Kody had once loved best, the one who remained with him as the others fell away. She sat stiff in her chair, her complexion drawn and blank, her fists knotted in her lap. She would not meet Kody's eyes. She would not meet anyone's. Her silence was more eloquent than words. Was she afraid? Or was she finally getting it through her head about the man she had stood by so long? The murmurs of the crowd surged and subsided like waves against the walls. What did he do? Is it money? I heard that he betrayed them all. No, it's something greater. Far greater. The eyes of the judge roamed over the agitated room. And when he spoke once more, the din vanished at once. Today he stated firmly, though his words were heavy with significance, we will discover the truth. Mr. Brown, the days of secrets are behind us. The words lingered in the air, like a guillotine edge poised to descend. The crowd became silent, but it was charged. Everyone in the room leaned forward as if by sheer desire, they could compel the truth from Kody. Kody shifted uncomfortably. He tried to sit tall, to regain the confidence that had carried him through years of public scrutiny, but his shoulders slumped beneath the weight of the moment. His eyes darted to Meri, then Christine, then Janelle, and finally Robyn. Each wife's face reflected a different chapter of his downfall. Meri's resolve, Christine's anger, Janelle's cold disappointment, and Robyn's heartbreaking doubt. The silence became intolerable. Somewhere in the rear, a phone rang loudly before its sound was muffled. A pen snapped. A cough rang out, but nobody had the courage to shatter the silence. At last, Kody's attorney leaned forward, muttering frantically in his ear. Kody nodded, choking hard, but his hands shook against the wooden table. And then Meri shifted. Slowing purposefully, she stood up from her chair. Everyone's attention was on her. The file she clutched was pressed to her chest, as if it held her pain and her authority. Her lips wobbled for an instant, her voice stuck in her throat. But then she stared at Kody, her gaze unwavering. Her voice was firm, hard enough to cut through the tension. Your Honor, I am holding in my hands the truth that Kody Brown concealed for years. The world saw a husband, a father, a leader. But behind doors closed and cameras and vows, he created a secret life. One that cheated not only his wives, but everyone who ever trusted him. The courtroom burst forth in gasps. Kody pounded his fist on the table. "That is a lie," he bellowed, his voice breaking. "Everything is a lie." But his eyes gave him away. It wasn't anger, it was fear. The judge rapped his gavel. "Mr. Brown, you will stay silent until your turn to speak." The room fell silent once more, though the air was charged with 1,000 unasked questions. Christine leaned closer to Janelle, whispering through clenched teeth, "He won't be able to hide anymore. Not after this." Janelle nodded, her eyes fixed on the file in Meri's hands. "And Robyn," finally, she spoke. Her voice was barely audible, but in the silence, everyone heard it. "Kody, please, tell me it isn't true." Kody's face went taut. He had his mouth open, but no words emerged. He turned away from her, his eyes fixed on the ground. The moment was intolerable, like the silence before the lightning. In the quiet, everybody knew the same piercing truth. Kody Brown's empire was not merely cracking, it was on the verge of falling apart. And this was just the start. Years audiences have assumed they've witnessed each of the Brown family's cracks. They assumed they knew all the drama. The wives fighting, the money trouble, the broken vows. The cameras revealed tears, shouting matches and apologies. But what no one ever did see, the ugliness hidden behind every fabricated smile, was more sinister than anyone dared dream. And now, in the disorienting glare of the courtroom, that truth was fighting its way to the surface. Meri rose, the file quivering in her hand. Her voice was little more than a murmur at first, but with every sentence, she grew louder, stronger, like the building force of a storm. "Your Honor," she started. "For years, Kody Brown forged himself a reputation as a man of faith, a man of family. The world viewed a husband committed to his wives, a father who raised his children in love. But behind the veil of smiles and words, he constructed another thing, a hidden life, one that sapped us emotionally, financially, spiritually, a life that gave us scars we continue to bear." The words cut like a sledgehammer. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Christine's face turned red, and she stood up, her voice full of rage. "He betrayed us all. He led us to believe in his vision of unity, but it was a fraud. He wanted power, not family. And now, it's time the truth is out." Whispers spread through the room. What did he do? Money? No, something greater. Kody's fist crashed onto the table, his chair scraping back on the floor. "All lies," he snarled, his voice ringing out. But his eyes, dancing, glassy, spoke otherwise. It wasn't rage that drove him, it was fear. The judge glared down at him. "Mr. Brown, you will be quiet." Kody's lips clamped shut, but his hands shook on the table. His entire posture betrayed the mask he'd worn for so many years. Meri held the file to her chest. Her hands no longer shook. She stood straight and gazed directly at Kody, and said again, "You faked loving us all the same, but secretly you were concealing, planning stealing from us in ways people could not even imagine. You figured we would never know. But today, Kody, your treachery is revealed." The words cut deeply. Robyn, who had sat quietly all this time, finally snapped. Her voice trembled as she whispered across the courtroom, "Kody, please, tell me this isn't true. Tell me they're wrong." Everyone's attention was on Kody. He said nothing. He looked at the table, his jaw clenched, his chest heaving with rapid breaths. He couldn't meet her eyes. Robyn's lips quivered. Tears welled in her eyes. Her silence was deafening. Christine's rage overflowed. She jabbed a finger at him, shaking with fury. "Do you have any idea, Kody, to give you years of devotion, raise kids in your self-proclaimed faith, and give up everything for your vision, only to find out you were going to take off and leave us in shambles with nothing?" Janelle, typically even-tempered and level-headed, at last opened her mouth. Her tone wasn't rage-filled. It was icy, biting. "You didn't just betray us wives. You betrayed the children. You betrayed the very people who trusted you most." The implications of those words dangled in the air like a challenge. Even the judge sat back, scrutinizing Kody with narrowed eyes. Kody leaned forward in his seat, sweat beading on his forehead. His attorney leaned forward, speaking in a furious whisper, but Kody waved him off. His mouth moved, but nothing came out. His face, once so confident and proud, was white, gaunt, and empty. The courtroom held its breath, anticipating, every eye on him, every heartbeat in his name. At last Kody spoke, barely under his breath. "You don't understand. I had no choice." The microphone caught it, and the whole room listened. The audience gasped in one massive breath. Christine pounded her hand on the table. "No choice? You had every choice. And every time you chose yourself." Meri opened the file, removing the first page. The rustle of paper sliding out was thunderous in the quiet. She held it up for the courtroom to witness. "This is just the tip of it. We have records, documents, evidence of how you lived a secret life while the rest of us struggled." Kody buried his face in his hands. He rocked back and forth, shaking his head. His empire, his meticulously crafted persona, was slipping away from him. And for the first time in years, he was at someone else's mercy. The betrayal wasn't spoken in hushed tones anymore. It wasn't kept in the dark. It was here, in the courtroom, out in the open for everyone to see. And the wives who had once borne his dream were now the very ones destroying the walls about him. The betrayal was total, and the secret was just beginning to come undone. The instant Meri raised that initial page, the tension in the courtroom changed. It was as if all of them held their breath together, anticipating the explosion. The page trembled a little in her hand, but her tone was firm, cutting through the hush. "These records," she stated, "contain accounts Kody never shared with us. Transactions we were never supposed to view. Years of deception, hidden behind deceptions." The prosecutor moved forward, his black suit crisp and sharp, his eyes shining with the exhilaration of the chase. He held a sealed envelope, heavy with evidence. As he put it on the desk in front of the judge, the ring echoed like thunder in the chamber. "Your Honor," he started, "this isn't hearsay. In that envelope are documents, bank transfers, and signatures that directly link Mr. Brown to money diverted from his family. This is evidence. He was creating a life in secret, as his wives were barely scraping by." The audience exploded. Journalists leapt from their seats, shouting questions to which no one knew the answer. Spectators clapped their hands over their mouths, some stunned, others outraged. Former neighbors nodded knowingly and whispered, "We always knew something like this was going to happen." The judge pounded his gavel. "Order, order in the court." Kody's face reddened. He leapt from his seat, pounding both palms on the table. "This is a witch hunt," he yelled. His voice broke, the voice of an out-of-control man. "They're jealous, bitter, and turning everything around to take me down." But nobody stirred, nobody believed. Robyn's face collapsed, tears coursing down her face. Her voice trembled as she begged across the courtroom. "Kody, please, please tell me this isn't true. Tell me they've made a mistake." For one brief moment, Kody gazed at her. His eyes went soft, his lips quivered, but then he moved away. He couldn't meet her eyes. That one action was more vocal than any admission. Robyn collapsed, covering her mouth as shudders racked her shoulders. Christine sprang up out of her seat, her words slicing through the uproar like a knife. "Now do you see it, Robyn? Now do you see at last what we've been telling you all along? He wasn't keeping us safe. He wasn't guiding us. He was manipulating us while constructing an exit strategy for himself." Meri pounded the file on the prosecution's desk. The report echoed out like a gunshot. "We carried him. We believed in him. We gave him our lives, our trust, and this is how he repaid us. By stealing from the very family he professed to love." Janelle, quietly but intensely serious, leaned forward, her voice low yet sharp enough for the whole courtroom to hear. "This wasn't about money. It was about control. Every choice he made, every rule, every requirement, wasn't for us. It was for him." The prosecutor took advantage of the moment. He ripped open the envelope, pulling out the incriminating papers. His voice firm, professional, but each word oozed authority. "These documents reveal Kody Brown funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars into secret accounts, offshore accounts, accounts his wives didn't even know he had. While the family documented, while they struggled, while children wore hand-me-downs, Mr. Brown was making his exit." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Gasps, screams, wails. The judge's gavel clashed repeatedly. "Silence!" Kody's attorney sprang up from his chair. "Objection, Your Honor. This evidence has not been authenticated. Before he could get the words out, the prosecutor held up the final document aloft. This, he stated, is a handwritten letter, signed by Kody Brown personally. A letter to a financial advisor outlining his strategy for withdrawing money, and he paused, looking at the wives. Break from his family once the accounts hit a certain figure. The wives all gasped together. Robyn's hand leapt to her chest. Christine's knees faltered, and she clutched the table to remain upright. Janelle slapped her hand over her mouth, eyes huge and running with tears. And Meri, she shut her eyes, and a lone tear rolled down her cheek. But when she opened them once more, her eyes were hard and unbroken. Kody fell back into his chair. The color drained from his face. His lips trembled, but no voice escaped. His hands shook with fierce violence, and sweat dripped down his temple. He resembled less the self-assured patriarch the world had known, and more a man whose entire kingdom had just fallen to dust beneath him. Christine slanted forward, her voice shaking with unfiltered anger. You were going to leave us, all of us. After all we gave up, after all the years you took from us, you were going to walk away and leave us with nothing. Janelle spoke quietly, the words cut so fine they were like a blade gliding between ribs. And the children, Kody, you would have left them behind. The courtroom fell eerily silent again. No one moved, no one breathed. The truth was out, and it was uglier than anyone had imagined. Finally Kody broke. His voice cracked, barely audible, but the microphone caught every syllable. I never thought you'd find out. The words echoed, bouncing off the walls like a death sentence. The audience gasped, cameras flashed, reporters yelled questions, but their voices were lost in the din of shock. The judge slammed his gavel until quiet came again. He glared at Kody with eyes that felt no sympathy. Mr. Brown, this court does not and will not accept lies. Evidence speaks for itself. Your wives unite against you. Is there anything else you wish to say in your defense? Kody's mouth opened, closed. His eyes raked, frantic, seeking an ally in a sea of betrayal. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. His empire had fallen. His secret was revealed, and the tension in that courtroom was only just beginning to strain. The prosecutor's tone cut like a knife, cutting through the thick air of the courtroom. He grasped the pile of papers tightly, as if holding the very reality that would bring down Kody's meticulously built kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, walking in front of the judge. The proof is not rumor. It is not guesswork. It is fact. And that fact shows the darkest form of treachery. He placed the first document on the evidence table, a bank statement that was peppered with transfers, dates, and coded descriptions. These accounts, he went on, were concealed from his family. Offshore accounts. Transfers designated in ways that only a person closest to the situation would be privy to. Mr. Brown wasn't merely concealing money. He was making arrangements for a future none of his wives were intended to share. The room gasped. Each whisper rose to a tidal wave of shock. The reporters held their pens more tightly, writing furiously. The fans gazed in stunned fashion, their minds stuttering at the reality that the man they had once respected was capable of such deceit. Christine stood up, her voice breaking. All those times I asked you to help with the bills. All those nights I lay awake trying to figure out how to put food on the table. You had this, you let us go without, while you constructed your double life. Janelle, ever composed, now addressed them with a rage that made the air chill. It wasn't all about money. You lied to us day in and day out. You instructed us to trust you, that you were giving up as much as we were giving up. But you were loading the dice, getting ready to leave with clean hands. Meri advanced, her hand shaking as she pointed at the second document. This letter, she declared, her voice ringing out, is your handwriting, Kody, signed and dated. A letter to a financial advisor detailing your strategy. It reads, and I quote, once funds reach stability, I will cut ties and start anew. Family will no longer be my responsibility. The room was filled with a collective gasp. Robyn's face went white. She clung to the edge of the table as if she would fall over. Her words were in a whisper, broken and shaking. Kody, how could you? Kody shook his head uncontrollably. That letter is out of context. You don't know. I was covering. But the judge interrupted him, slamming the gavel. Mr. Brown, enough. The prosecutor wasn't done. He waved the last page, his tone steady. Here is the ultimate betrayal. A contract written with another party, someone outside of the family. Mr. Brown wasn't going to leave his wives emotionally. He was going to prepare an orderly exit, cutting all strings once his money was in his pocket. The room erupted with sound. Robyn hid her face in her hands. Christine's voice cut through the din, with hurt and fury. You were going to erase us. Erase us from your life like we were nothing. Kody's mask broke totally. He pounded his fists on the table, his eyes welling with tears. You have no idea, he bellowed. The pressure, the expectations, the cameras. I couldn't catch my breath. I had to escape. But his confession opened the wound even wider. The wives stood together now, a coalesced front. Their voices ran over each other, raw and authoritative. You lied to us. You betrayed our children. Control, that is what you never loved. You loved control. The judge's eyes narrowed. Mr. Brown, the evidence is damning. Your secrets are out for all to see in this court. You have lied to your family, your community, and the people who trusted you most of all. Kody slumped in his chair, his face hidden in his hands. The man who once walked with arrogance, who thought himself invincible, was now a shadow, a battered figure revealed to the world. The crowd hummed, unable to hold back. Cameras popped incessantly, capturing every tear, every glare, every moment of break. Christine leaned into Meri, breathing through clenched teeth. We have him. Finally, after all these years, we have him. Meri nodded, her gaze never wavering from Kody. The agony on her face was evident, but underneath was a hard glimmer of justice. Robyn gazed again at Kody, her voice shaking, replete with broken hope. You made me think I was special, that I was different. But in the end you betrayed me too. The silence that greeted her words was oppressive. Kody's eyes darted up, praying for mercy, but there was none to be found in the room. The secret was no longer secret. It was here, laid bare in ink, on paper, in his own words. And just as the judge was about to make his decision, the world was aware. Kody Brown's empire was not brought down in a blaze of glory, but was dismantled, piece by piece, by the truth. The chambers of the judge seemed as though a tempest had come to rest within its walls. The gaze of every eye in the courtroom, fixed upon the bench, waiting, quivering with anticipation. The gravity of the moment weighed upon them like iron shackles. No one dared to whisper. No one dared to stir. Kody Brown slumped in his chair at the defense table, the arrogant fire that had once burned in him now extinguished. His suit clung to him like something he no longer fit, the sweat on his forehead glistening with testament to his lost confidence. His eyes flitted around the room, pleading for some last vestige of control, but it was gone. It was gone for good. The wives sat in unison, a shattered but collective entity. Christine gripped Janelle's hand firmly, both of their knuckles white. Robyn shook, caught between loyalty and grief, mascara-stained tears streaking her face. Meri, though her shoulders hunched, sat upright with an unyielding gaze that could shave stone. The judge cleared his throat. The echo sounded like thunder booms against rock walls. He pushed his glasses back up the bridge of his nose, his face stern but firm. Upon examination of evidence, he started, his voice crisp and unyielding. This court holds that Mr. Kody Brown has acted with willful deception. He has hidden assets, defrauded the trust of his family members, and participated in schemes unbefitting a man of his authority. Gasps echoed through the room. Cameras snapped again and again, catching the exact instant the empire of Kody Brown was starting to implode. The judge brought down his gavel. This court finds for the plaintiffs, Meri Brown, Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Robyn Brown. All secret accounts are to be confiscated. Restitution will be paid out to the wives and children, that the family may be taken care of. Mr. Brown's rights to said monies are hereby stripped from him. The clang of the gavel coming down was thunderous, definitive, absolute. For a moment, quiet engulfed the room. Then chaos broke out. Shouts from reporters came as they wrote frantically with microphones pushing in front. The audience gasped, some cheering, others speechless. Kody recoiled as though the verdict itself had hit him. His mouth worked. But the words would not come. merely a parched rasp, the taste of defeat strangling him. He bashed his fist on the table in a final gesture of rebellion. But it was hollow, pathetic against the thundering wave of justice. Christine stood up first, her chest laboring. She looked at Kody, her eyes blazing with tears, but her voice unmoving as steel. This is what you deserve. Every lie, every broken vow, it all led you here. Janelle came next, her voice softer, but keener, slicing him to the bone. You didn't lose only money today, Kody. You lost the family you said you were leading. You lost us. Meri inched closer, her file clutched in her hand like a sword of truth. She leaned forward, close enough for him to listen alone. But her words were as heavy as a hammer. You thought you could hide your secrets. But the truth always makes it to light. Always. Robyn sat still, trembling, tears distorting her eyesight. Finally she uttered the words that cut Kody deeper than any judgment. You swore to me I was different. But I was just another deception. Kody slumped into his chair, his face in his hands. The patriarch was gone. What was left was only a man who was exposed, shattered and single. The wives stood together, united as they hadn't been in years. They left the courtroom side by side, heads held high though tears poured down their cheeks. Reporters pursued them, flashes bursting like lightning, but they never wavered. The picture was burned into everyone's mind. 4 women once set apart now moving together, while the man who had attempted to dominate them, sitting defeated, his kingdom in ruins. As the courtroom cleared, the murmurs swelled into a chant borne out into the streets. Kody Brown's secret revealed. The kingdom of sister wives has crumbled, and for the first time in decades, the wives were free.